Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji and we promise you a packed show. Today is all about a topic that is on the lips of every Nigerian. In fact, every Nigerian, their father, their grandmother and their dog has an opinion on this topic. It's something that we're all waiting for with hotly anticipating and bated breath. I'm talking about the 2023 general elections taking place next year in Nigeria. Of course, there's so many factors that are going to play a role in this election. We're looking at religious factors, political factors, economic factors, social-cultural factors, and so many more. I mean, if you go online, there are agendas, counter-agendas, there are slogans, and everybody has something to say about the elections. Will this be the make or break elections for Nigerians? There's a lot of hope in the land, but as well as skepticism. So we're going to be taking this issue and unpacking all the different topics around the 2023 elections. In fact, as they will say, Nigeria, how far 2023? Joining me in the studio, I have Adetunji Adeniran, who is a public policy expert. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And good evening, everyone.
Well, good afternoon. Let's go straight into the subject of the 2023 elections.
Yes.
Are you excited about the elections?
It's a mixed feeling, you know. Would I say I'm expectant, not so much of...
Hopeful?
Yeah, exactly. So hopeful, not so much of excitement. And I'm saying that because this is not the first election that we're having in Nigeria. And definitely it's not going to be the last, by God's grace, you know. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that there's going to be a change. I'm hopeful that it's going to be like an inflection point for us as a country. But in terms of excitement, you know, looking at the players and all the things happening, all these issues going around, it's not really about the excitement. I think it's about the fact that I'm hoping that this is going to be the time that we're going to have like a change in the country, a change of leadership for the better, and a change of, you know, policies, you know, that will make things better for the country. So it's from an hopeful point of view. Yes.
Hopeful. I think a lot of Nigerians share in this hope that things will get better come 2023 because they say it all rises and falls on leadership.
Yeah, exactly.
But now, when we look at this particular elections, is the fact that there won't be any incumbent who will be participating in the election. So it's almost like a fair playing ground. Do you get that sense that we're going to have free, fair, and credible elections come 2023?
Absolutely. I participated in the Osun State election, being my state, and the election was, there was no violence, there was no case of ballot snatching, so it was very free and fair, so all the players agreed to it. So judging by that, and also looking at what happened in the Ekiti State, I can say, and with the fact that we have a new electoral law of 2022, that is putting a lot of systems and processes in place, we can say that, you know, the election in 2023 is going to be free and fair. And also judging by the fact that we've not seen, you know, previously we used to have that federal might at state level, but what we've seen right now is a government that really wants free and fair election. I think that there's going to be free and fair election in 2023. When we say general election, I think another thing that we also need to look at is that it's not only the presidential election that will happen in 2023. There's going to be the Senate election, there's going to be the House of Assembly election, there's also going to be the governorship election. So I think that generally, judging by the two elections that we've conducted under the Electoral Act of 2022, the election in 2023 is going to be free and fair. The other third factor that is also going to be working in favor of the election is the renewed hope amongst the people. You see almost about 20 million PVCs have been collected in the last few months. You see the engagement of the civil society, the likes of Yaga and co on our election, and the interest of the international community as well. So I think that the election is everybody's keenly watching it, and we are hopeful that it's going to be free and fair.
It's like that soccer match where it's the finals and
Yes, like
Nigeria
the
is going for
Clasico,
gold, right?
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
we are joined by some guests on Zoom. I believe we have a good governance advocate, Uche Okoye, and we'd like to get your views on the 2023 general elections. Looking at, do you share in the same optimism that Adetunji has? And what are your expectations going into the general elections? Can you hear me, Uche?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. 2023 election is a very important election in our country. It's a very important election because it's a defining moment for us. A large spectrum of Nigerians still believe that their votes don't count. But at some point, it feels like it is true. But looking at Electoral Act 2020, Electoral Act, and looking at the outcome election in Osun State, one would say that one would say that we have to be very optimistic about the outcome in 23, I mean. So we are expecting to see something great. We are expecting to see a defining moment. We are expecting to see something new in our country. We've had a series of elections in the past since 1999, and the electoral election has been improving, the Electoral Act has been changing, and the process has been improving. And one thing that is very important is the fact that leadership selection process is very crucial in democracy and, of course, development. And so we are going into 2023 election. We are going to put every effort to ensure that it comes out transparent, free and fair, and of course, the right candidates emerge at different levels of government. So that is what
of course,
a lot of young people especially are expecting to see.
And of course, for that to happen, it involves everybody not just getting their PVCs, but going to the polls to cast their votes. I'm going to go back to a point you made earlier on, and this has to do with the Osun and the Ekiti elections. And your comment was about the improvement that has been seen as a result of the Electoral Act. So now we're seeing the advantages of the Electoral Act, but some will argue that there are some loopholes that the politicians are weaving around. And what does that have in terms of its significance and in terms of what could happen come 2023, knowing that there's always that loophole that you can capitalize on?
So I think that in every system, right, that's why there's need for constant improvement. In every system, it can never be perfect. We can only strive towards excellence and then gradually making things okay. So expecting perfection is like very far stretched. In terms of improvement, we've seen a lot of improvements in election. And the loopholes that we talk about is, in my opinion, I think that if people really come out, like election in Osun was about 55% voter turnout.
Why do you think people came out in Osun State for the elections?
Okay, so people came out for the election because it was at a point where people were tired. You know, people said they were tired of the government, you know, in the state, and they just wanted, something new. And also, I saw that there are a lot of, the political parties in the state really came out, drove that voter education, and also the works of civil society organizations driving electoral education, talking to people to come out and collect their PVC. Some of this online engagement really helped, to bring people out to vote. So it's more from people saying that it's enough is enough. We want something new. That's why I think
why do you
people
think
came out.
At this particular election that people actually thought that their vote was going to count? Because sometimes it's not the issue of people coming out to vote, but there's that feeling that, well, I voted, but whatever happens at the polling station and what happens in the end, there are usually discrepancies.
Yes. Why I think that people think that their vote is going to count now is the fact that we've seen precedent. We've seen what happened in Ekiti State. We've seen what happened in Osun State. So going to 2023 is already like an indication that their vote is going to count. That's one. Second is that previously we've not had as much civic education as we've had in the last 1 year. I know of like many conferences that I've attended alone that, you know, there are civil society organizations coming to tell people to go get your PVC. And also in the previous elections, we've not had as much social media engagement as we've had now.
So definitely technology
technology has really played
a role in improving voter education and events as well. We have Okpe Onriowo joining us via Zoom. Okpe, welcome to Rubbin Minds. We'd like for you to quickly weigh into the conversation looking at the 2023 elections. Do you share in the optimism of both guests, or are you a bit more skeptical going into these elections?
Thank you. I'm actually Moshokbe Arubai, not Okberiowo.
Okay, apologies. We have Moshokbe Arubai, I believe, an economist who is joining us on Rubbin Minds. Thank you and welcome to the show.
Well, like the other guests, I'm optimistic in the sense that I've seen that people are a bit more economically aware. So it's not just about allegiances to some party or a particular candidate. It's about, I mean, everybody's feeling the brunt of inflation. Everybody's feeling the brunt of the foreign exchange crisis. Everybody's aware of the debt level that we have and the implications it could have in the future on taxes and all that. So people are a lot more economically aware, and I think people want to know, okay, you want to be the president, how would you tackle some of these issues that we're currently facing? The truth is we're in the face of that crisis right now. So I believe people are now at a point where whoever is going to lead from 2023 should be able to chart us through this stormy waters. Yeah, so I'm a bit optimistic, at least compared to 2015 when the current president first came into power. We had funny statements like, I'll make $1 equal to $1 and all that. So we're not hearing many of such statements anymore, because I mean the populace is a lot more educated from the economic angle. So if you make such bogus statements, you'll probably be shooting yourself in the foot. So yes, on the part of the populace, I believe we're more educated, and then on the part of the candidates too, they'll be a bit more prepared to come into power. So yes, I'm optimistic.
Okay, interesting. You should raise the point about the economy. I remember, I believe it was President Clinton saying, "Is the economy stupid?" when he was asked about what will change or what will be the deciding factor when it comes to the elections. Now, when we talk about the economy, and I'm going to move to you, Adetunji, there's so many things, from inflation, rising cost of living, whether it's petrol, it's diesel, it's food, and then of course we can't run away from the dollar, which just seems to be on its own incline by the minute, some will argue, and we still have to depend a lot on imports. How big a factor is the economy going into the 2023 elections?
It's going to be very huge. It's going to be very huge because when you go to the market doesn't decide whether you are a member of ZLP or a member of ADC. You go to the market and you buy whatever you want to buy. So if your purchasing power is getting lower every year, you'll feel it. Whatever party you belong doesn't matter. If inflation is affecting one, it's affecting all. So it's going to play a key role in choosing who is going to be the next leader. So like the other speakers, Moshokwe said, we're going to need to now scrutinize whoever is coming in. What are your plans to be able to address some of this? Some issues are local, some are global. You know, so, but the local ones which we have direct control over, what are your plans? What are the things that you're going to do differently? Personally, I'm not sure the next president is going to solve all the problems that we have on ground, because there's so much, like so many. But there has to be a plan. You can't come into the office without a plan. That plan may not be 100% sufficient. It will never be 100% sufficient, but we need to see a plan. So I think that people would want to see the manifestos of each political candidate and the plans of each candidate going into election. And also, this election, I think, is also going to be shifting from political parties to individuals. So people will want to see individuals for who they are before they get into this system. So for me, I think the economy is going to play a very big role.
Okay, I think still on the economy, because this is a big one, we'll go back to our economist, Mushokbe. And this time, I want to know, what are the key things we should be looking at in these manifestos? Are we looking at, say, for example, if you speak to people in the health sector, the education sector, they will say, well, we don't have enough budgetary allocation. Are we supposed to be looking at maybe fiscal policies? Are we supposed to be looking at inflation? Or like you mentioned, looking for promises that bring down the inflation rate as well as the dollar rate?
I mean, for me, a topical issue for me will be subsidy removal. That's been gaining a lot of momentum, and I think there was a time, I think it was in 2012, 2011, when the issue came up under former finance minister, and there was a lot of back and forth, public engagements and all. I think we've moved away from that era. The populace is now aware that subsidy is literally counterproductive for us. Yes, you're buying fuel cheap, but at the detriment of expenditure to critical sectors of the economy. So I would want to see the plans of the candidates on how they intend to effect the removal of subsidy, if they even want to remove it in the first place.
It's interesting you say, sorry, I want to take you back to the subsidy removal, because that's always a political issue. Because if you do, let's go through maybe some of the numbers. You just use the example of petrol. If we're removing subsidy, we're looking at paying how much, for example, and what impact does it have on the short term before, you wait years to see maybe some of this capital expenditure yield into, infrastructure that obviously will work in the long term?
Okay, I mean, truth be told, the PMS subsidy that we currently enjoy benefits only the urban centers. They're the ones that have relative, very, very low, it's not even relative, very low energy inflation compared to the rural areas. And the whole ideology of subsidy is to reduce the pressure on the poor. I mean, we're in an urban, if someone in the village who probably cooks with kerosene most of the time doesn't have a subsidy on kerosene that they used to cook, then why should we in the urban centers who drive cars, probably don't use kerosene to a large extent, enjoy subsidy of that magnitude? I mean, it's just a small percentage of people who actually live in urban centers that won't be able to afford paying full price for PMS. So for me, I think the whole idea of the subsidy already conflicts the reality, because energy inflation in rural areas where you have like majority of the poor people is actually significantly high compared to what you have in the urban centers. So that's my take on it. I can't at this point, I can't really say how much, but compared to the cost of PMS in our neighboring countries, the cost of PMS in Nigeria is very, very low, very low. And that's why we have incidences of where marketers smuggle PMS products after enjoying subsidy here. They smuggle it to other markets where they can also pay full price for it. So regardless of how you look at it, I don't think it's pro-poor. From my angle, there are numbers that substantiate that. And at the end of the day, we're still disenfranchising Nigerians at either ways.
Mushokwe, I'd like you to hold on to some of your thoughts on the economy, because I know you still have a lot to speak about. We'll be going on a short break on Rubbin Minds. Do join us shortly. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Before the break, we were knee-deep in our conversation on the 2023 general elections in Nigeria. Hashtag Nigeria Decides 2023. And by a lot of what is going on social media, there are a lot of expectations. There's optimism. There's a lot of a sense that their vote counts. Going by what happened in Osun and Ekiti State, I'm now joined by the project lead, Nigerian Youth Futures Fund, Bond, Okpe Oriowo. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Isabella. It's good to be here.
So I'll let you weigh in. Are you on team optimistic or team skeptical when it comes to the 2023 elections?
I would say optimism, measured optimism, if I would use that term. And I mean, my opinion is that, 2023 would not necessarily be the watershed moment, but it would be the tipping point. It would be the ignition for that watershed moment. I mean, if I'll use the same 80-20 rule, right, when it comes to marketing, they are definitely doubting Thomas about 2023 being that moment, right? But that 20% required to get the other 80%. We're going to see if we have gotten that 20% 2023 and the possibility of a real brighter future where, young people's voice will be on the table, when it's not just going to be Nigeria decides, it's going to be the potential for the realization of the Nigeria we want. Putting an agenda on the table. I mean, if you look at the PVC, I mean, just piggybacking off what you said around what happened in Osun State and Ekiti State, and the level of numbers we're seeing in PVC collection, there is definitely an awakening, right? So now it's now beyond, now we are awake. Now the required sensitization and consciousness to make the right decision, for us to aggregate those numbers, to say, okay, we are 70% of the population, so what, right? The 70% has never been aggregated to the point whereby it becomes that, determinant of who emerges. So 2023 will be an opportunity for us to really see that, are we really as awake as we claim that we are on social media, and does it cascade down to the grassroots? And I also think that there is a pivotal moment. The reality is that a young person is not going to become president in 2023. Neither is he going to be a woman, right? But there is an opportunity to negotiate. Then there's opportunity right now to aggregate that voice and put an agenda on the table to say, as young people, these are the critical issues in which we're pursuing. And those are the things that, we are personally interested in terms of what we would like to see materialize.
So 2023 is about pushing the needle forward and
Absolutely.
maybe steering the ship in the right direction, even though we might not get to that intended destination.
Absolutely.
I'd like to go to Uche Okoye. And, we've been talking about what's been happening in the western part of Nigeria, namely Osun State, Ekiti State. But you're joining us from Anambra, and we'd like to have a sense of what's the feeling, the general feeling on ground in the eastern part of Nigeria concerning the elections. I mean, we also have a presidential candidate from that part who has been a governor in the state that you're currently in. So can you give us a sense of the kind of feeling that's on ground in Anambra and the eastern part?
Okay, thank you so much. Of course, before now, the people of the Southeast, they used to be very apolitical. They used to be very reluctant in any election. They've never been very active in politics. But now, because of the antecedents of, one of their sons that is contesting, one of the things that is actually activating a lot of interest, especially in this part of the country, is the fact that the person that is contesting, his character, his antecedents, and what he represents. And this is actually the only driving force. Usually you would see people from this side of the country who are usually traders, and of course in other professions as well, but they barely put interest in politics. But this time around, they are getting back into it. So there is some sense of responsibility among especially the young people who are hoping to see someone they look up to, someone they see that will bring something different, someone they have experienced while he was a governor. So that is actually the drive that is activating almost every level in this part of the country. So yeah, that's what I can say for now. Going into the 2023 election, we have a lot of time, to do a whole lot of work on ground in terms of sensitization, in terms of PVC collection, which has been very difficult, especially in some parts of the states and the region. INEC has not really been able to decentralize the process. And these are the things that a lot of people have been vocalizing about, allowing people to get their PVC on time, getting the PVC registration at every nook and cranny of the region so that more people who are enthusiastic about this election will be part of it. So these are the things that a lot of people, interest groups, the civil non-government organization, individuals are putting effort on to ensure that more people come out in 2023 and to get their votes count.
Okay, I'd like to sample a bit of opinion when it comes to the PVC collection. So we see whether it's something to do with maybe a particular geopolitical zone or it's just a general problem. So I'll start with Adetunji. I mean, you already have your PVC because you voted in Osun State. What was the process like, you know, getting your PVC, or was it something that you didn't have to go through again?
Oh, I got my PVC in 2011, actually, so it wasn't... so I got
you,
it like some time ago.
You have just maintained the same local government. You've not had to transfer your PVC.
Yes.
Or let me ask you, Okpe, when did you get your PVC and what was the process like?
Well, I've had my PVC since 2011, though I moved it to Lagos recently.
Okay.
And
how was the moving process? Was it seamless?
Well, it could have been better.
Okay.
But I would even say the digitization process is, you know, I like to see the coppers half full rather than half empty. And the reality is that I will say that INEC has made some progress in terms of, and one of the responsiveness we would even see of INEC is the recent extension that we've seen. You know, there was a stop to even registration itself, but there was a whole lot of push from young people to say that we needed to have this exercise. So I would say that, you know, it's been a love and hate relationship with INEC, but I would say that they're also, you know, moving. They are also, you know, I mean, might not be moving at the speed as we would like, but there's been significant change in their...
And very quickly, let me sample Moshokwe's opinion with. Have you received have you picked up your PVC, and if yes, what was the process like?
For me, the process was quite tedious here in Lagos, but I eventually got registered. But like Okpe said, the process can always be better, either digitally or physically. I don't think the process should be that tedious, if you'd ask me. Yeah.
Okay, I think there's definitely room for improvement, but definitely some allowances are being made in terms of extension, digitization, and really a lot of sensitization. I know there was a concert held just to promote getting your PVC. So you keep talking about the civil society. I know, Adetunji, you wanted to say something before I move to...
I wanted to say that even though I had my PVC in 2011, my organization has helped a lot of people, you know, bringing them together to help them get PVC. I think one of the major issues that we've seen is that, people get to register online. When they get to INEC office, it's always like, okay, repeating the whole process again, and then it becomes very tedious, like Moshope said. Now, more importantly is the fact that after getting the temporary card, when are they going to get the permanent voters card, which is the most important to vote
so from
eventually.
TVC to PVC,
exactly.
So need to get answers
INEC has not
that.
come clearly on what is the process, by what timeline. Will people get SMS? You know, we've seen people come to me that, oh, they've not get an SMS. When are they going to go back to get their PVC? We don't have a clear plan. We only know that you can register by end of so time, but
but
PVC, which is the most important thing,
PVC.
We don't have any communication on that yet.
Well, I'd like to bring you into the conversation, Okpe, on the factors that will shape 2023. We've looked at the economy. I believe you mentioned something to do with the character. We're seeing more individuals coming out, and there's a lot of optimism. But what factors do you feel, or maybe prioritize it? What's the one factor that will shape the 2023 elections?
I'll say wholesomely, I'll say young people will play a significant role in that. But there's a reality. You know, the reality is that the factors that have always played will still play. There's a regional component to this electioneering. And it's interesting hearing my brother speaking from Anambra speak and talk about Peter Obi's candidacy and how it resonates with, you know, the Southeast region. But we're talking about the presidency here. With presidency right now, Southwest, Southeast, all of the parts of the country are going to play a significant role. So for me, I see 2023 more as a lesson to see that have we really matured as we say we have? You know, does his candidacy resonate? I mean, I like him as an individual. I think that he's a good manager of resources. I think he'll probably manage resources better than quite a lot of people. But in terms of the appeal required to mobilize for you to be a national leader, we've never really had a national leader in this country. We've always had regional leaders, then we have political entrepreneurs who come together and agree, bring this side and bring that side. We make this cocktail to become presidency. But that independent candidacy of someone who has a broadband appeal, we'll still see, I mean, we still have critical issues such as Muslim being a factor, and we have CAN associations actually coming out to say that just because of the fact that we don't have our religion on the table, that's like a major deal breaker. So I would say that, the same old issues will still be important in 2023. However, the ignition I was talking about is about the emergence of a new crop of leadership, of conscious citizenship, who believe that, rising above the southeast, southwest, and all that, to now make it agenda-based. The idea of how democracy was designed to say, okay, I represent XYZ, that cuts across. It's not about my identity as Peter Obi or as Bola Tinubu or as Atiku Abubakar, but as XYZ. This is my position on issues. And let us have differences in terms of this person stands for this person stands for that, and it connects to me based on that. So 2023 is going to show us that there is an emerging crop of citizens who are going to choose their leaders based on the issues that matter, and I'm putting a bet right now on young people. Young people are going to be the people who, we have the numbers already, we are less likely to inherit bigotry.
Listening to you and you're talking about this leader, it reminds me of my childhood, and I think, there was that sense of hope when it came to the, I believe it was Kingibe and Abiola, and it seemed to just take over the nation. And, people are going to be looking for that national leader and looking for what are they bringing to the table. So I'm going to move to you, Adetunji. In terms of that national leader, is that national leader able to rise above the factors he mentioned, like religion? So if there's a national leader, because the people who are on the side of whether religion matters or not say, well, Abiola and Kingibe were both Muslims, and Nigerians rose above that. Are we going to see that the personality or that ability of one person to hold the nation is going to make Nigerians rise above issues like religion?
Hopefully, we are hoping that will happen. But in my opinion, I think that Nigeria has been so divided in the past few years that we generally just think in terms of religion and tribe, right? So I don't think that pre-1993, we had such division like this. We've just had military rules, but we've seen that from 1999 to date, we've had democratic rule, and people have been sectional. Like I said, we've been tribal, pushing my son, pushing my daughter to go to the national level. We've even had like Federal Character Commission that had to be sharing quota, in the country. So you see that the country naturally has just been divided across regions and tribes. So I think that it's going to be difficult, is what optimistically, this is what we hope for, that we have a national leader that thinks above religion and ethnicity. But in terms of reality right now, what our country is, we are very religious people and we're also tribal people. But personally, what I think that we should be looking at is someone who brings energy to the table, someone who brings morale to the table, right? Because as a country, we need to reignite our value system. We need to bring that value to the ground to say, this my brother is my brother. I don't care where he comes from.
Where he comes from, which God he serves. I'm going to move to Uche, and I'm posing that same question to you. Do you think that having a leader that's energetic, that comes with the morale, and is able to carry the whole nation, Nigerians will look at that and rise above the issue of who my vice is, who my running mate is, and what religion that person belongs to?
So let me say this. Let me tell you, Nigeria is currently very divided along religion, region, and or whatnot, political as well. Leadership, there's something Chinua Achebe said. He said the biggest problem with Nigeria is leadership. And what that means is that for us to get it right in this country, we need a good leader, somebody that will look beyond some of these divisive tendencies. Our diversity should rather be our strength, but over times, the politicians have used it, have weaponized it and used it to their advantage. And what they do consistently is to whip it up during the election. And it has not helped anybody. There's no market where the Muslim buy cheaper goods or Christian buy cheaper goods. There's no markets, there's no filling station where they buy cheaper fuel. We all make use of the same thing. So we are suffering the same problem. And therefore, we need somebody that has the competence, the capacity, the energy to drive that change that we desire or we are looking out for. Look at the economy today, like most of us said. Look at the the insecurity, the education, everything in Nigeria is practically grounded. And at this point, every single young person whose future is at stake is interested in having the best to lead, the best to take charge. Because when you have a better leader, you wouldn't even think about this, this whole so-called division. The problem we have majorly is because we have had over the years incompetent people occupying the position of power, dictating to the larger population on how to do things. And that has really crippled a lot of things. So when we talk about presidency in Nigeria, we talk about not just presidency, because we also
because
have
the elections go beyond I'd like Moshokpe to also weigh in on this. There's been the talk about what a good leader is, and some will say that a good leader, being the president of Nigeria, is still a political role. And then when you're considering the politics on ground, religion is something that can't be taken out of the politics. Or do you feel that religion is only used to whip up sentiment and so should not be a key factor in deciding running mates and agendas?
I mean, for me, I think competence should be the number one thing. However, I can't discount the fact that we have dividing lines from religion to ethnicity and all that. And like all the other guests have mentioned, this has been weaponized over the years. It would obviously not be corrected overnight. So I still feel that at this point, none of the candidates probably checks all the boxes of assuming the national leadership role where everybody would feel included in the government. However, from a professional point, I think we need to look beyond religion, ethnicity, and consider competence above that. But the reality is usually different from what is
presented. Now, in the issue of competence, I'll move to you. But what does competence look like in a Nigerian leader? Is it what you did when you were in office? Is it how you've run your personal business? Is it your qualifications from university? Is it your philanthropy? What exactly is competence when it comes to leadership?
Wow, that's a very big question. Big question because with benefit of insight, we recall when Buhari came and we felt all you needed was just not to be stealing money. And, once you are, not corrupt, quote and unquote, and just throw yourself in the system, Nigeria becomes that, utopia. That what we've seen that you can individually not be corrupt and the corruption will still thrive, right? So we know that just the fact that you as your own personal integrity is not enough for the governance system. So for me, I would say that all of those things that you said in terms of, before now, I say we need more professionals in politics, not professional politicians. We need people right now who have created value somewhere else. Part of the things that is required. Nigeria has to be seen as an economic entity. We need to move away so much from the old political prism of looking at things. So we need people right now who have created value. We see human beings as value creator. We see Nigeria's population as its greatest assets. So I would say that value creation, having an experience and a background of value creation. Secondly, we need integrity, people who are rooted in the systems. I believe if you don't understand Nigeria's problem, you can't solve it.
So integrity and definitely people who have added value, right. Experience.
Absolutely.
We have to go on a quick break on Rubbin Minds, but do join us shortly. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. It's all about Nigeria Decides 2023. I'm talking about the general elections due to take place next year in Nigeria. And we've been looking at the factors that will shape this, what many will say, watershed election. So just before the break, I believe, Okpa, you were talking about what a competency looks like in a leader. And you mentioned someone that has added value at some point, so that speaks to experience. Mm-hmm. And I believe you also mentioned somebody that had, I believe, the qualities of being a good leader. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you, Adetunji, where does that leave the young person? The young person that believes, because this election is not just about the presidency. It's about State House of Assembly. It's about House of Representatives. Where does that leave that young person that says, I have what it takes, but I might not have had the experience. I might not have had opportunities to have created as much value as the, what you refer to as professional politicians. So where does that leave the whole not too young to run and young people who want to come out and go beyond just voting, but actually taking part as leaders?
Okay, I think that you don't need to be a professional politician before you show that you have value to add to the system. I think that is even better, right, if we have professionals who go into politics and decide they want to add value to the system. And the Constitution is also very clear. There are different criteria for election at different levels. So if you are going for House of Assembly, House of Reps, Senate, and the President, the criteria is different. And also, if you have not added value anywhere else, how do you want people to trust you that you can add value to the election if you are going for any of the elections of Assembly or House of Reps? So I think that as a young person, you need to show that credibility. You need to show that competence, that you've done X, Y, Z, and this is the value that you're bringing to the table, and this is why people can trust you. Gone are the days where you can just go and meet one godfather and then they just endorse you. I think people are now more educated, people are now more aware, and then they are now more aware of the system. And if you come to election, they can decide to vote you or vote someone else, and that's going to be dependent on your manifesto. So the manifesto is going to be dependent on what you've done in the past and what you're going to do in the future.
Okay. Moshokpe, I'm going to take you back to what Okpe said as the second quality, which looks at integrity. Now, when you're speaking about integrity in Nigeria, you can't run away from the money conversation. We do know that running elections in a country, in a democracy, not just in Nigeria, is expensive. So the issues of how you're going to fund your elections comes up. And also, we can't run away from vote buying. We saw it in Ekiti and we saw it in Osun State. So in terms of like the whole money around the elections, I want you to weigh in. Can we see people still be full of integrity and not fall prey to the system that almost makes you have to spend more money than you have just to get into power?
I mean, it's actually difficult to actually beat that structure and bring in someone who has integrity, quote and unquote. It's difficult to produce someone with integrity from let me say corrupt or system. It's really difficult, and that's going to be the challenge many young people who are interested in politics would have to face. I mean, during the during the past year, I know a couple of young people who were interested in different positions, but of course, because the finances were not there, they didn't have the financial backings and all, they lost out, even though they had the knowledge and all that. So it will be really difficult, except you have maybe a leader who spots you as a talent, and he's probably willing to take a chance on you and finance whatever it is. But then that brings us back to the godfatherism situation. So it's going to be really difficult to actually break that cycle.
Okay, so I believe Nigerians will be between Hard Rock and the Deep Blue Sea. And Uche, and a hard place. Yes, a rock and a hard place. Uche, I'd like you to weigh in on godfatherism and also godmotherism, because we do have, yes. So please, let's have your take on it. Are we going to see more of that playing a huge role in the 2023 elections?
One thing you have to be rest assured is that the politicians will always have a way to manipulate the system. But I think the Electoral Act is taking care of some of these things. It's a gradual process. I'm very optimistic that it's going to eliminate some of this manipulation in the system, where political stalwarts, or the godfathers you may call it, impose candidates on the electorate. Some of these things are beginning to be looked into, and we are going to witness it, but it's going to, I'm hoping that it's going to be reduced, because people are beginning to vote for popular candidates. The electorates are beginning to get educated. I mean, the economy is beginning to bite them, and that in itself is, kind of reshaping their mindset towards the election. So you cannot buy everybody. Vote buying is something that manifested during the last election in Osun State and, of course, in Ekiti State. We have been seeing it quite some time now, but I think that has remained their result. at least for now. But it may not completely be eliminated. What may happen is that there may be a better law that may be in place to to punish anybody that involves in vote buying. So that is, I think, what can actually mitigate it. But in a long, looking at the 2023 election, I can tell you that the electorates will make a serious impact because of the voter education.
Okay. It's interesting you should say that, because I can't just help but recall the video of young people on social media literally counting the money and turning it to what some would look at a TikTok challenge. So it will be interesting to see how much vote buying and even just that display, like it's not just happening in the secret, but it's being openly displayed. But now I'd like to look at INEC, because we've been talking about the Electoral Act, we've been talking about what INEC is doing, but do you have the faith that when it comes to the D-Day, when it comes to, all the elections, that they're going to almost keep up this momentum and ensure that they deliver free and fair elections, no matter whose ox is God? And I'll pose that to you first, Adetunji.
Okay, so based on what happened in Osun State, because I was there live and in my polling unit, INEC was there before 8:30, which is, very impressive. And they had all the equipment, they were already accredited, people were being accredited, and as you do the accreditation, you can go and vote and make the process faster, and people were able to leave the polling units as fast as possible. And at the end of the election, right there at the polling unit, the elections were, the ballot papers were counted, and the results were transmitted. So
electronically.
Yeah, electronically. So if we go by this momentum, I believe, I'm very optimistic in what INEC is putting in place. And of course, with the support from both the government and the civil society organizations, I believe that we're going to keep up this momentum, because what we are seeing right now is the preparation for the general elections. And, at the preparation level is where you make as many mistakes as possible, is where you are able to spot the loopholes. So I believe that INEC is watching, going back to review and looking at where the loopholes are, and then by 2023, they will have made the system as very good as possible. Maybe not 100% perfect, we shouldn't expect perfection, but we'll see an improved system versus what we had in 2019.
Okay, I'll let you weigh in on INEC, but also looking at 2023 elections as that election that will signal to the world that our democracy is maturing and that we are moving to a place where we can see more representation along ethnic lines, gender lines, religious lines, and in fact that it's an inclusive leadership.
Absolutely. Thank you, Isabella. So, I'm just going to ride on what Adetunji said around INEC's ability to deliver. It's a big bet, and we're going to bet on them to deliver. I believe that the antecedent so far has shown. Of course, we know that there are pressures, and those pressures will come. Even in Osun, we see there were pressures, but we're seeing that they are managing to rise above these things. But so I would say that, I'll place a bet on INEC that they would deliver, and I think that they've also put systems in place that also make it difficult from within, especially the digitization where vote is being transmitted from each polling unit right now to a server. That allows, limited, of course, they are hacking and all of that going on. So I would say that INEC would definitely, we expect that they live up to the expectation. Now to the bigger picture around what 2023 will signify. And I would say that, we have an opportunity to define the agenda. All of those things you mentioned around inclusion, gender mainstreaming, good governance. We have an opportunity for us to leverage young people's position in this country going into 2023 election by developing an agenda that, we always vote individually. We've all experienced our individual opinion, but it has never really amounted. So
it will be about that agenda that it takes into consideration what young people, women, people across Nigeria really want. And I have to stop you there. We've run out of time. I have to say a big thank you to you, Okpe Oriniowo, and also Adetunji Adeniran. And joining us virtually, we had Moshope Arubayi and, of course, Uche Okoye. Thank you all for your contributions on Rubbin Minds. I know as we count down to Nigeria 2023, Nigeria decides 2023, there'll be lots of conversations on this topic. My name is Isabella Adediji. Do enjoy the rest of your afternoon and join us again next week for Rubbin Minds.